In the headlines, 3 killed, many injured in bandits' attack on community in Niger State. Federal High Court in Abuja strikes out 8 of 15 terrorism charges against IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu. And on the foreign scene, dozens dead as Russia rockets hit Ukraine railway station. And in sports, British cycling bars transgender women at elite events. Hello and welcome to Trust TV News Update. I am Ibrahim Yusuf. Now the news in full. At least 3 persons have been killed while several others have sustained injuries in attacks on Rumache Madalla community in Bassa Kukoki local government area of Shiroro local government of Niger State. Many others were abducted during the attack, which took place Thursday afternoon. Co-convener concerned Shiroro Youth of Niger State, Sani Abubakar Yusuf Koki, told correspondents that the bandits attacked the community with sophisticated weapons. During the deadly encounter, about 3 people were reportedly killed, while many others were abducted. He said kidnap for ransom has become a common phenomenon in the localities. Meanwhile, Nigeria's insecurity in recent years has risen sharply in almost every part of the country, which have defied all human understanding, posing threats to the lives of millions of Nigerians. It could be recalled that almost 2 weeks ago, the country witnessed a major terrorist attack where passengers traveling on the Abuja-Kaduna train were attacked. 8 people killed, 168 kidnapped, and many injured. And barely 24 hours after the terrorist attack, another attack was reported along Abuja-Kaduna Road, where scores of people were kidnapped. Now, this is a situation that is frightening to every Nigerian, according to experts. And one may begin to wonder, where did the country go wrong? In an earlier interview, we had the pleasure of having Captain Bish Johnson in the studio to discuss the insecurity issues. All right, so talking about Nigeria's insecurity, now a lot of Nigerians are crying out, you understand, trying to understand what exactly is happening. Where did the country go wrong?
All right. This country has failed to make the critical investments that were actually needed to secure the entire length and breadth of the country. We were not planning alongside our population growth. The number of security operatives were not following up with the growth of our population. And so what has happened is that there is a huge gap between assets and resources that's devoted to security of lives and property when you compare that to the population growth of the country. And so for that reason, we are lagging. And so it needs a radical approach. Something radical has to happen to be able to bridge that gap and make sure that the required number of resources and assets for security is at par with the growing population.
Okay, so basically we're playing catch up when it comes to security.
We have not even started trying to play catch up. We are still very, very behind because we have not even started making those critical investments. We're not meeting the requirement or the UN recommended requirement in terms of the ratio of police officers to the percentage of the population. We have not gotten to that point yet. And so we need to do something radical. And that is one side. Another thing is that because we have failed to also invest in all the critical infrastructures that could have allowed us to grow our economy, create employment for the same population that was growing and keep them busy. We didn't do that. And so those population are almost idle. And because they are idle, some of them are resorting to criminal activities, and that is why we are where we are today.
All right, so this leads me to my next question. I mean, every Nigerian that you speak to right now is calling for a better system of security, all right? We understand that what we have right now is not working.
Sure.
You understand, so we're looking for something better.
Sure.
So specifically now, you said we need to do something radical. Specifically, what do we need to do?
One of the things that I have been recommending and that I have always recommended is that we have to look at security from the perspective that it's everybody's responsibility. And what I mean by that is that it's quite obvious that the federal government alone cannot provide adequate security for the entire country. So some of us have been asking for a situation where, for example, we decentralize the police and allow states to even have their own police with regulations. Because I understand the concerns of those who are opposed to state police. Those concerns are legitimate. But we can find some necessary regulations that we can put in place so that those their concerns can be remedied.
Like what?
Their complaint is that state governors are going to use the state police to go after their political opponents. Good. That is why the federal government, for example, if you go to the US right now, the FBI is the federal police, and all the cities and states have their own police. And they have a Department of Human Rights Violation at the federal level. And in every system, of course, the federal government supersedes the state. And so we can put things like that in place. And another thing is that the longest, the most a governor stays in office is 8 years. After that 8 years, it's just like any other citizen of the state. So whatever crime that he commits while in state, as a state governor, using state apparatus, he will be held to account when he leaves office. So we make sure we have those kind of processes in place, because the federal government cannot fund adequate security for the entire state, the entire country. So everybody has to play a part. The state, the subnational, the national, the subnational, we have to play a part in the security of lives and property. That is one. Number two, we have to get the private sector involved as well. Because like I said, security is the business of everybody. There are over 3 million private security guards in this country. There are over 1.5 million, over 150,000 private security guards in this country. These are people that have been screened and trained, but we are not effectively utilizing them as a result of outdated civil security laws that we have in place. So we have to look at those laws, see how we can bring them up to date, so that these private security companies and their guards can equally become a very fundamental and veritable part of our security system to make up for the lapses that the public security cannot provide. So
That was Captain Bish Johnson discussing insecurity earlier in the studio. Now moving on to other stories, the Federal High Court in Abuja on Friday struck out 8 of the 15 terrorism and felony charges proffered by the federal government against the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. Justice Nyako, while ruling on a preliminary objection filed by the IPOB leader, strikes out the charges. We will bring you details in our subsequent bulletin. And the National Assembly has begun moves to thwart the actions of some members of the Federal Executive who are bent on removing Section 84, subsection 12 from the Electoral Act 2022. Reports say the nation's apex legislature has started the process of appealing the judgment of a Federal High Court, Umuahia, Abia State, which removed Section 84, subsection 12 from the Electoral Act. Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act bars all political appointees, including ministers, commissioners, and aides, from contesting or voting in any party primary. Some members of the executive, including the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, had opposed the section, saying it was undemocratic. President Muhammadu Buhari a few months ago signed the electoral bill passed by the National Assembly into law, with a caveat that Section 84, subsection 12 be deleted to deepen democracy in the country. But the National Assembly in March threw out the President's request and insisted that serving political appointees must resign before contesting elections. Now, staff of INEX cleaners on Wednesday called on the state government to retain them after the contract between the government and their employer, INEX Cleaners, expires. They made the call during a peaceful protest to the government house in Gombe. Ibrahim Ismail reports.
The peaceful protest was expected as they were already in the know that the said government has terminated the contract with their employer, left with little or no option of avoiding joblessness. This seems the best way to get government's attention to their plight as they speak to Trust TV. We are doing our work. We just saw new workers who came through job racketeering. We heard that the government will return us with a good pay, 15,000 naira monthly. However, we are being replaced with new workers.
All of us, we are working in this company, and then they replace someone in our works. That is why the thing is they pay us. We come here to our governor to help us, to take us, bring us the justice in our works.
The state government, through the Gombe State Environmental Protection Agency GOSEFA, said the state government terminated its contract with INEX due to the high cost of operation. The general manager of the agency, Muhammad Kumo, called on the protesters to be patient as plans are underway to retain their employment when it signs a new contract with another company.
GOSEFA here we are engaging 1,000. Those one that engage in cleaning the drainages. The Cosmopolitan are engaging about 520. That's 1,520. Then the Baptist Green are engaging about 874 tonight to even 900. That's what we are planning to engage. And their number is, I think, is about 3,100. But we will, inshallah, do our best to see that we have achieved our desired goals, inshallah.
From Gombe, Ibrahim Ismail reporting for Trust TV.
And residents of Minna, the Niger State capital, are finding it more difficult to access water for domestic use, especially during the month of Ramadan. Since most wells that serve as sources of water for many households have dried up, a truck of 10 jerrycans now costs between 600 and 1,000 to 1,200 naira. Abubakar Akoti tells us more.
One thing that the residents of Minna, the Niger State capital, have lived with since beginning of this dry season is water scarcity. For residents of Tudun Fulani Gabas and surrounding areas such as Ngwambiri, the source of water is a pond where animals also drink from, which they drink and use for other domestic activities.
It's the only promising source of water we have in this vicinity. Because pipe-borne water don't work properly. But the selected few individuals that dug borehole this year, we are selling it. So, and the number of queue, you have to wait for an hour before you get 2 or 3 things. So, if you need water, you have to come down here. Because, in fact, you can see the children, the adults, everybody is coming down to come and get water so that they satisfy their. We in the area are not buoyant enough to go and buy water that they sell 100 naira per keg. So we have no alternative than to take what we have. We batch, we cook, and sometimes even drink. Every living thing here drinks from this water. And the fortunate thing we are having, you can see there are settlements already ahead of the dam. So they are sewage from their houses. When it's rain now, it's all magnet down here. But we don't have any alternative.
While there are few private boreholes where the water is sold as low as 10 naira per jerrycan, residents will have to queue up for hours to get water fetched.
Some people late in the night, around 11 p.m. Some of them will not even get water. It will last for like 3 days. But we are making a lot of effort to see that everybody gets water, especially this month of Ramadan.
We need to not be only in the morning like this. In midnight, like 12 o'clock, we dey here to come line up to get water. If you no come around 12, you no go get water till the next day.
Water scarcity was suffering of water is for 1 month now. Some people are coming from area court, some people are coming from New York,
Residents said State Water Board does not supply water to many areas, while wells that have served as a major source of water in many households have dried up this dry season, forcing them to buy from vendors at prices between 600 naira and 1,200, which is also hard to find. And while those with means buy from truck pushers, those without the means trek kilometers to fetch water wherever it's available. In Minna, Abubakar Akote, Trust TV.
Meanwhile, several communities in the Jos area of Plateau State have been hit by water scarcity. This has led to untold hardship on the people. Our correspondent, who visited some of the worst hit areas, sent in this report as presented in our studios.
Jos annually experiences water shortages during the dry season, as most wells are often dry. Many are unable to sink boreholes due to the rocky nature of the city, while others do not have access to pipe-borne water. The recent scarcity, which is however unprecedented, has been attributed to the busting of the pipes which supply water from the water board to taps in the communities. The bursting of the pipes is because of the interchange flyover construction at British America Junction and the dualization from the junction to Lamingo Junction roundabout. Some of the places affected are Rikus, Gangare, Nasarawa Gwong, Anguwarogo, Delimi, Anguwarimi, among other places.
Sincerely, we are suffering. Suffering is lack of water. It has been a long time that I have seen water in the area.
We have actually been suffering from water scarcity. Some people actually trek far away from distant places to fetch water here. And sadly, they are not even getting the water for free. They are getting the water at the price of like 20 naira. Some places 30 to 50 naira. So we are actually making a call to the government, to the members of the national and the state houses of assembly to make their own contribution also that we will be out of this difficulty.
From Agoyobawa to Mahaba Junction, I'm coming from come and take water for here. Every package 3 kilometers. I buy one keg, 20 naira, 30 naira. Water is very scarce.
In these affected areas, the only source of water now is boreholes. There are long queues at the different boreholes as many wait in the scorching sun to get water, while others trek long distances. Many are hopeful that these affected areas will receive attention from government and other spirited individuals to address the shortage.
You're watching Trust TV News Update. Coming up after the break, thriving Katsina second-hand wares market. This and more after the break. Do stay with us.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
Welcome back. You're still watching Trust TV News Update. Now look at some of our top stories. At least 3 persons have been killed while several others have sustained injuries in attacks on Rumachima Dalla community in Niger State. And the Federal High Court in Abuja has struck out 8 of 15 terrorism charges against IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu. And moving on to other stories now, the Niger Erosion and Watershed Management Project, NEWMAP, says it will continue to give priority to communities affected by erosion as a way of improving the life of the people in those areas. Some officials of the NEWMAP stated this while inspecting rehabilitated erosion sites in Lafia, Nasarawa State. Abubakar Abdullahi has the report.
Was among those affected by erosion in some parts of the state, but the intervention by the Nigeria Watershed Management Project has brought succor to the people here. The managers of New Map activities in Nigeria say commitment by the benefiting communities of its project will encourage the World Bank to inject more resources towards improving the life of the people.
One of the things that we are looking at doing is actually to work with communities such as yours. So it's really impressive to see that there's already an established community interest group, and we've taken note of your concern, which is how to help you move from manual production to a more advanced production, and also the use of solar system. And
you see, whatever you do, if you do it well and you excel and you show real commitment in it, definitely one day somebody is going to notice it and something very good will follow.
Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State, on his part, commended New Map for embarking on projects that touch the lives of the citizens.
My joy actually comes from the fact that at least you can hear directly from some of the people that you have impacted on their lives. This area during the rainy season used to be a very no-go area. It was a very difficult area to pass by. Today, just like they have passed through the testimonies you have had, they are able actually to carry out their activities effectively, and they are able to cross and connect with their friends and other business partners just across.
Representatives of the benefiting communities commended New Map for the intervention and promised to safeguard the project.
Today, what has been as a blockneck to us, as a bottleneck, has been removed, despite the fact that the construction of this drainage and culvert has really increased our life.
Yanzu kuma ina cikin sarari, an na koma ina cikin siminti. Na gode maka da girma, mai daukaka mana Allah ya kara maka.
Several communities across the state that before now suffered erosion and other environmental disasters benefited from the New Map project. Abubakar Abdullahi, Trust TV News, Lafia.
Now, the business of second-hand materials such as mattresses, clothes, shoes and electronics has been thriving in northern Nigeria for decades. Second-hand materials are sourced and transported to the north from Lagos and other cities in southern Nigeria. Mashi Market in Katsina State is one notable destination where used or second-hand materials are sold. Abdullahi Amadi visits the market and now reports.
Once it is market day in Mashi, local people troop to make their choices. Similarly, some people from other parts of northern Nigeria, such as Bauchi, Gombe, Yobe, Adamawa and Jigawa, also patronize the products. Second-hand materials ranging from clothes, shoes, mattresses and electronics are displayed to prospective buyers. Most of the people who patronize these materials are low-income earners. The dealers here make brisk business, as most of the people cannot afford new ones due to the current economic downturn. There is everything in this business. We make money, we take care of our families, and we do everything through this business. In fact, this business brings almost everything. It brings honor, dignity, and economic value to all of us here, you see. It's not our concern. All we're after is the money we are going to make, and most of them, we just wet them. Put water on it without washing. We don't wash these mattresses. We don't wash them. We only put water. Those who patronize these wares give little or no attention to where they come from or the health implication to them. You see, like me now, I came from Jibia. Like me now, I have performed Hajj in Saudi Arabia all through this business. I bought so many houses. I have a lot of houses through this business, and I thank God.
But if this trend is allowed to continue,
That means a contagious or a contaminated or an infected object could be transported from that region to this region, and that object may be contaminated. And once, tetanus is a disease also that can spread from one person to another. So once you imported this as a disease, that means you have imported something dangerous. And in another case,
despite the economic value of this business, observers see the need for government intervention to save people from contracting diseases. Equally, experts appeal to authorities concerned to immediately embark on a vigorous campaign to at least sensitize people on the best ways to handle second-hand materials before use. Abdullahi Ismail, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Now look at the foreign scene, where Ukraine says at least 39 people are dead and dozens wounded after rockets hit a train station in the city of Kramatorsk in eastern Ukraine. According to the Donetsk regional governor, thousands of people were at the station at the time as they fled Russian attacks. Russia denies involvement in the strike, with a Kremlin spokesman saying it had no scheduled missions in the area. Russia is stepping up its offensive in the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine as it withdraws from the north. And for a quick look at sports, transgender women can no longer be able to compete at elite female events run by the British Cycling after the organization suspended its current policy. The previous regulations required riders to have had testosterone levels below 5 nanomoles per litre for a 12-month period before a competition. British Cycling says it will conduct a full review of the policy in the coming weeks. A statement from British Cycling says transgender and non-binary athletes could still take part in non-competitive activities. Last month, Emily Bridges was due to compete in her first elite women's race after meeting the requirements, but was later ruled ineligible by cycling's world governing body, the UCI. And that wraps up Trust TV News Update for this hour. Don't forget, you can subscribe and follow us across all our social media platforms. I am Ibrahim Yusuf. Thanks for joining us.